What you consistently allow into your mind will eventually find its way into your life with more influence than you realize. Welcome back to the Vibrance Podcast. I'm Ransom. Let's talk about something deeply practical and deeply spiritual today. What we allow into our inner world. By that, I mean our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our decision-making. Proverbs 4:23 reads, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." That phrase, above all else, suggests priority. Yes, priority, singular, one. It suggests that if we get this right, many other things will fall into place. And if we don't, everything downstream is affected. We are inundated in our culture with all kinds of things other people think we should approve of, endorse, promote, or if nothing else, tolerate without objection, to fit in. In 1987, an open or unlocked access point let intruders enter the historic Hampton Court area building known as the Duchess of Kent's former residence, and they set the place on fire. The damage was discovered later that evening. The building had been left unattended for some time. Guarding the gate of your heart and your mind is vital, especially as it relates to the media you consume, the relationships you nurture, and the ideas you entertain. Think about it. Your heart is directional. It's the control center of your life, thoughts, desires, beliefs. They stem from here. Whatever takes root in your heart eventually expresses itself in your behavior, your words, your leadership, and your purpose. That's why this instruction is active. Guard it. Would you agree with me that guarding implies intention, that it implies boundaries and discernment? Say yes. May I give you a simple 3-word framework for guarding the gate? Filter, evaluate, choose. Let me repeat that. Repetition helps things move into long-term memory. Filter, evaluate, choose. First, filter. Not everything deserves your attention. We live in an age where access to our minds, our brains, is constant. The stream of content is endless and the voices are everywhere. You know what's more dangerous than that there's bad content? It's that there's so much content that we stop being selective. Filtering means you decide ahead of time what things you will let through the gate. Ask yourself, is this true? Does it align with truth? Does this align with my purpose? Is this consistent with the kind of person God is shaping me to become? If the answer is no, don't. If it's unclear, don't. One of my favorite quotes from Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, is this: "If it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no." You can find that on page 109. First, filter. Second, evaluate. Some things will pass the initial filter that still need discernment. And the mature know that not everything that is appealing is beneficial, and not everything that is popular is wise. Evaluation asks, what fruit is this going to produce over time? Maybe in me? Does it move me toward peace and purpose? Or downhill into comparison and distraction? When you evaluate, you begin to notice patterns. Certain conversations leave you energized and grounded, while other conversations leave you unsettled or cynical, maybe drained. Some content sharpens your thinking, other content dulls it. Evaluation is paying attention to what something is and to what it does. You filter, you evaluate, and then third, you choose. Guarding your heart requires decisions, plural, repeatedly. Yep, relentlessly. You choose what stays or what goes. You choose what gets to return. And what's given repeated exposure, because repetition is powerful. What becomes familiar becomes comfortable, and what becomes comfortable often becomes formative. So choosing is where discipline shows up. You may need to limit certain voices. You may need to step back from certain relationships. You may need to eliminate certain forms of media, not out of fear, but out of purpose. You're stewarding your heart. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a German theologian during World War II. He lived in a time when destructive ideas were being normalized and amplified across an entire nation. And Bonhoeffer's courage was remarkable in this time, as was his clarity. He was intentional about what he allowed to shape his thinking. He immersed himself in Scripture, stayed grounded in truth. He resisted the messaging and ideology that surrounded him, even though it was widespread and culturally accepted. Because he guarded the gate of his heart and mind, he was able to recognize what was wrong, stand for what was right, and ultimately live with integrity, even at great personal cost. Bonhoeffer's life reminds us that what we allow in determines what we stand on. In contrast, messaging around smoking during the early days of the tobacco industry was carefully crafted to shape public perception. For decades, it was represented as harmless, even beneficial. Doctors were used in advertisements. Cultural signals reinforced the idea that this was normal, even desirable. And over time, that repeated messaging influenced millions of people. Did every individual carefully evaluate the truth? No. The constant input shaped belief. One friend of ours told me her doctor started her smoking habit. She was in labor at the hospital, and while there, she learned of her toddler's near-drowning accident at the neighbor's swimming pool. She freaked, understandably so. Her doctor, thinking he was being compassionate, handed her his cigarette. "You could use a smoke," he comforted her. Over 50 years later, she was still smoking. Eventually, of course, the truth became clear. The health consequences were undeniable. But by then, the influence had already taken root in many lives. And that's what happens when the gate is left unguarded, not just personally, but culturally. Ideas and messages matter. Repetition compounds their influence. I hope this doesn't sound harsh, but if we're not intentional about what we allow in, something else will be intentional for us. Sorry, I got to preaching there for a minute, didn't I? Let me come down off the platform and sit next to you a minute. Let's think about 3 areas of life. Your life. I'll be gentle, I promise. Think about media, about relationships, about ideas. What are you consistently watching, listening to, or reading? Is it reinforcing truth or distorting it? Is it building you or subtly pulling you off course? Who has regular access to your thinking and your emotions? Are these voices aligned with who you are becoming? Do they challenge you toward what is right or normalize what is not? What beliefs are you entertaining? What assumptions are you accepting without examination? Are they grounded in truth or shaped by convenience, maybe culture, or maybe comfort? I just want to be comfortable. Is that so bad? Guarding the gate doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. Please hear me there. Guarding means engaging the world with discernment. It means you're not passive, you're intentional. You're not reactive, you're grounded. It's discipline, I know. It takes work. A lot of the time, it takes work just after you got off work. Come on, I just want to... But you persevere. Over time, your self-discipline produces something powerful: clarity. You knew I'd eventually get to clarity, didn't you? When your inputs are aligned with truth and purpose, your thinking becomes clearer. Your decisions become steadier. Your leadership becomes more consistent. And your life begins to reflect what the proverb points to. Everything flows from a well-guarded heart. Your well-guarded heart. Let me leave you with this encouragement. May I remind you, guarding your heart isn't about restriction. Guarding your heart is about direction. It's about strengthening your core so you can thrive. Sure, it requires discipline, saying no when it would be easier to say yes, stepping back when others are leaning in, choosing what is right even when it's not the most comfortable option. But the reward is worth it, because a guarded heart becomes a steady heart. A steady heart becomes a clear life, and a clear life becomes a vibrant life of purposeful impact. So this week, while you're sitting in the gatehouse, watching this video on your phone, don't forget to look up and monitor the gate. What's coming in? What needs to be filtered? What needs to be evaluated? What needs to be chosen differently than last week? You don't have to change everything overnight, unless you just like trauma. Just start with one adjustment, maybe a hard one, but important. A boundary, a decision, one intentional choice, and build from there. Envision a sign on the window of your guardhouse. Mine is a well-guarded heart, because everything I do flows from it. Thanks for joining me on the Vibrance Podcast. There are some links below that may be of interest and of help to you. Vibrance is all about life, leadership, and the art of thriving, and it is so worth it.